There you go. Now you should be able to hear me. All right. Just for the sake of hiding an edit, we're going to do this again. All right. So So that's how you do that. For anyone who wasn't live, there was an edit before this. Welcome everyone to another episode of Technical Difficulties. If you want to know what that technical difficulty was, is along with this fantastic update to OBS that we got with the stable release of OBS version 27, there was also an update to the Wavelink software that I use with this wonderful Wave 3 microphone. And whenever you update the software, it disconnects your audio device from OBS. And I forgot to fix that. That's what happened. There'll be a video on that later because there's some great updates to the Wavelink software as well. But we're here to talk about OBS. All right. There were a ton of new features added into OBS, a lot of which they're not necessarily bringing new functionality, but they're making things native to OBS that before you had to use a multitude of plugins or you had to use complicated macros with very exact timing that could break often, using complicated transitions and multiple transitions with a Stream Deck to achieve a lot of the effects that you're going to be able to do now native in OBS. And we're just going to walk through all of that stuff, but first I'm gonna ask you to please, if you've got any questions, send them in to streamelements.com/berkmade/tip. Doesn't even have to be about the OBS release candidate, or not even the release candidate. It's the stable release now, so release 27.0. Any technical questions you got, send them in, get them over. At the end of the show, I'm gonna go through all of them, and I'm going to answer as many of them as I can to the best of my ability. But let's go ahead and get into that this new OBS. We're going to bring up the patch notes. And okay, so these are the patch notes for all of the changes that were made in OBS version 27. And we're just going to kind of go through them one by one, mainly for these ones up here at the top, and then I'll kind of do a quick through all of the rest, because all of the rest is mainly stuff that's gonna work in the background. You're not even gonna notice it. You're not gonna know that there was a change. You're just gonna notice that things are working better. So first, let's hit what is probably the most requested feature in the history of OBS, and that is the undo and redo functionality. So you now have in your scene canvas, you can now undo and redo any changes that you made. I know that there have been times where I've accidentally just deleted an entire source, and I just get pissed and I'm like, God damn it, and you have to start from scratch. Well, the days of that are gone. You can now undo and redo anything that you do, or not anything, but they're slowly adding more and more functionality. Right now it works for sources, scenes, transitions, most of the things in the scene canvas. Not everything yet, but they're day by day they're adding new things. All right. The one place it doesn't work though is for settings in the actual settings menu. So when you change a setting or a property on something, you can't undo that. You're gonna have to reset that manually. But if you delete something, or if you move a source and you didn't mean to, because selecting sources to move them in OBS can sometimes be a pain. Simple, undo, redo. It's I don't know why it's taken this long to get it into OBS, but it's finally here. The next thing, and this might be the thing that I'm the most excited about, and that is not scene transitions, source transitions. So now, right here, so what you used to be able to do is you'd have to use this plugin called the Stream Effects plugin, and then you would have to add it and layer it with advanced macros with exact timing, where you would transition to a scene that was missing part of your scene, and then that would be another scene that you would then transition in, that would then transition to another scene that had both elements on top of each other. It's a very complicated process that involved a lot of nesting, and now you don't have to do that anymore. Now you've got source visibility transitions. So now you can just put a source on, and actually, you know what? I am gonna make a dedicated video for this, but real quick, I'm gonna show you guys how it works. So what you can do now is, sorry, I gotta make sure I find the right one. So when you turn a scene on and off, now it transitions. So before, you see how I had the window capture of my web browser fade in and out? Before, what would happen is it would just be a hard cut. The scene would just disappear. All right. You can even do your stinger transitions. If you wanted to put a stinger transition, any transition that you can do natively in OBS, you can do it. So I'm gonna change it right now to a window blind transition, or sorry, it's a swipe transition, but that's what happens. See, so now you can do that. So what that allows you to do is something really cool, and this is why I was waiting for this to happen natively. So now what you can do, instead of having a huge long macro that's like 15 different things that is going to be that might break and you're not sure what thing is going to break, what you can do is in your scenes, because here's what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm going to hide transition. I'm going to have it slide. It's going to slide right, and then we're going to do a show transition, fade in. So what you can do now is you can set up a simple macro that just transitions to the scene that you want to transition to. Or I guess first you would want to set any source visibility off if you don't have it off already. So first step is set the source visibility off, transition to the scene that you want it to transition to, then source visibility on. 3 steps in a macro instead of the like 15 or 16 it took to do this before. And what I can do now is, watch this magic. Webcam slides out, fades back in. You can do cool stuff like that now instead of what it was before. You could even do that to do something like move your webcam, right? You could set up your webcam, duplicate it like 4 times in a scene and have them off in the 4 corners. And then you could have it fade out in one corner, fade back in another corner as you turn one source off and turn another source on. Like, there's so much cool stuff that you can do now that you can transition individual sources. Like, I'm so excited about this. This is one of the things I'm the most excited about, not just for my own productions, but for things like the FCL. I've got a really cool idea of something to do with source transitions for the FCL, but this is the thing I am far and away the most excited about. There's another really cool thing coming for transitions, and it's the support of track mats for stinger transitions. So if you don't know what track mats are, basically what they do is they allow you to incorporate a stinger transition that is transparent, and you can control exactly when and how much of scene A and scene B are shown on screen. So you could do in my stinger transition, right? So I'm just gonna go to the main and then back to this screen just so you guys can see it for reference, right? So in that transition, right, and I come back, what I could do with a track mat transition is those white bars that are in the actual transition, I could make those the scene that is being transitioned to, so that you could see a quick preview in the transition. So that's really, really cool for people who have the type of stinger transitions that like something comes out to the screen and then zooms back, or things like that. It allows you to do some really cool functionality. Like, you know, you could have like, say this is something that it could actually work. My iPhone slides onto the screen and then has my next scene on it, zooms and rotates towards my camera, and when it fills the camera box, that's when the scene transitions to the next scene. That's something that you can do now with track mat transitions. There's so much cool stuff you can do with that. I can't wait to see what comes moving forward, the way transitions are changed, especially in live streams. Because track mats and things like that are something that we've kind of already been familiar with. Anyone that does video production and does those kinds of transitions, you already know how to do it. It's just now you can do it in a live production as well. The only thing that's changed from the stable release, from the release candidate, is in the release candidate there were 3 options on how you could set up the track mat. One was one file side by side, one was one file on top of each other, and then the other was 2 separate video sources. So you could have the stinger transition be one video source and the track mat would be a separate video source. In the stable release, you only have 2 options. It's the side by side or the one on top of each other. The only thing that this changes is that means that now you have to do some video editing and combine the 2 video files into one video file. It's not really a lot of editing. The track mat and the stinger transition should be the same length. So literally all you have to do is bring them into whatever your video editing software is and line them up so that they start and finish at the same point. That's it. Once you do that, you export it as one baked in video file, bring it into OBS, and your track mat is ready to go. The next thing that I want to hit on this, and this isn't a huge, this is a quality of life upgrade, to be 100% honest. This isn't going to do a lot creatively. It's really just for workflow and it's for quality of life. And there's now an interact button added to the source bar when you are using browser sources, which now means when you use a browser source in OBS, you don't have to leave OBS if you need to interact with that browser source. So say you got I stream Words on Stream on Twitch a lot. Now, when you're on Words on Stream, instead of having to leave OBS to go to the web page that I have open for Words on Stream, now in OBS there's an interact button. I can just click that, and anything I need to do in the browser source, I can just do it in that window. Another good use of this is, hold on, I'm gonna bring this up on the screen. It's really got nothing to do with this video. It's just something that, so if you use my instance, right, which is a browser-based soundbar, right? So now if you have this as a browser source and it's hidden behind everything in your scene, what you can do is now click on that interact button in OBS. It'll bring up a window of this, and then you can interact with it. You need to move to a different page, hit the button, whatever, to activate the sound. Whatever you can do, you can now do it in OBS without having to leave OBS. So it's a real quality of life upgrade. It's not really a I mean, it is a creative tool technically, but it's not one of those big creative changes that's going to affect the way that you can create for your streams or for your videos in OBS. The way source transitions, track mats, and things like that are going to affect that. The next thing, and again, this is, now we're kind of getting into more quality of life changes. The next one is they've now added virtual cam controls. So anyone who's out there using OBS virtual cam, for those of you who don't know what it is so what virtual cam does is it takes whatever's on your output screen, your program screen in OBS, and it creates it as a camera source on your computer. So you can use it in Zoom, Skype, StreamYard, whatever. What that does is it then creates a camera source that you can use in all of those different platforms. So now those controls are in the system tray, so you don't have to open OBS, like the whole window, in order to stop or start or whatever you need to do with the virtual cam. And for anyone that has their computer set to open OBS on startup and minimize to the system tray, now if you need to use, all you need from OBS is the virtual cam. You don't have to go through the pain of opening OBS to start and stop the virtual cam. You can just do it in your system tray. So again, that's another big quality of life upgrade. It's not and workflow upgrade. It's not a new creative tool per se. The next one is a little bit of both. And unfortunately, this one is only available for Windows. And that is, they've brought the Rtx Noise Support, the noise suppression function that you have in RTX broadcast, that is available for any NVIDIA RTX card, video card. They've brought that natively into OBS as a filter, so you can now add it and control it in OBS. You don't need to run things through NVIDIA broadcast and then route it into OBS. You can now just add it as a filter onto your audio sources in OBS natively. The reason that this is Windows only is because it still requires the RTX Noise SDK, which is simple. You download RTX Broadcast, that'll put it on your computer, and then from there, the plugin will function. You can still add the filter without the SDK. It just won't work. It won't do anything. It'll just sound exactly the same. All right. So I think that's not really a huge deal. It's not necessarily a huge quality of life upgrade. It just, honestly, what it allows you to do is just not have NVIDIA broadcast running in the background when all you need, if you're using it, most people, what they're using it for is the noise suppression, and now you can do that and just have it in OBS, and you can apply it. The cool thing is now that you can apply it to a individual sources now. So if you've got, a couple different people coming in, or a couple different sources, like say you've got someone coming in over Skype NDI and they've got a ton of noise in the background, but you don't. Now you can apply that noise suppression to individual audio sources. So I guess that's where it comes into one of those creative tools that you can kind of use to change the production value or level of clarity in your shows. So now we're gonna get into some of the more background stuff, the stuff that you're not really gonna notice. So one of those things is there's a new display capture method. This mainly affects people who are using laptops into display capture, as well as dual GPUs. So it just changes the way Windows assigns things and is capturing them. So now, like, if you're using a laptop and you're using display capture, what used to happen is, because you were capturing the screen that you were also using, it would just you would end up with a black screen. So now OBS has kind of fixed that. They've fixed that the problem of assigning GPUs as well. So which GPU is controlling which is going to what exactly, and routing displays back to OBS has also been fixed. Oh, I did miss one huge quality of life and workflow update. Now, when you open OBS, if you have any sources, so like, say my thumbnail, right? I change my thumbnail every show. I delete that thumbnail. It's no longer on my computer. When I open OBS now, it will now give me a missing files warning, and it'll allow me to browse and search for the file that I want in that source. Anyone who's used to most video editing softwares is familiar. It's just like the missing files you get in Premiere or why am I blanking on DaVinci, maybe Final Cut. I don't know. I've never used Final Cut. I've only used DaVinci Resolve and Premiere, but it looks almost exactly the same. It just looks like the OBS version. But that's a huge quality of life upgrade for someone like me who has shows where I'm rotating thumbnails and rotating lower thirds and rotating all these graphics. That it'll tell me which ones I need to replace every single time I open OBS, or actually every single time I switch to that scene collection. All right, now we're getting into the things that are kind of just backgroundy. They run in the background. So they added service integration and browser dock support to macOS and Linux, something that was only native to Windows prior. Browser docks are basically, they allow you to dock a browser window in your OBS window, so you don't have to leave OBS to do certain things. If you want to see a really great way of how I use browser docks in OBS, check out my video where I integrate OBS and StreamYard to give you that pop-up the chat functionality in OBS with StreamYard. They also changed the color texture formats. So really what they did is they changed the value on the end of all of your sliders. So it used to be out of 100, now it's out of 1. The values are the same, just think of 1 as 100. But you'll notice that colors are more accurate. So whatever they did, they kind of changed the color profile slightly. So now colors are more accurate. You get a little bit more control in the sliders now. But for the most part, that isn't really going to change for anyone that was using those. Now they're just going to be better. They added Wayland support on Linux for anyone who's using that for future releases of Linux. And then the real the rest of these are still kind of background stuff. But when saving a file, they now show you the file path that's going to be saved in the status bar. So before I used to be like, oh man, I forgot. Did I change the file pathway where I save this? Is this going to the right folder? Because each of my profiles in OBS saves to a different folder. And sometimes I've forgotten to switch it. So now I'll be able to see that as it's saving. I'll be like, okay, cool. I need to remember to go move this. And then I also need to remember to fix the file path. Sources and stingers, so media files, are now supported with hardware encoding on macOS devices, which they were not before. It was all CPU encoding, CPU encoding before. So that is a great thing for performance-wise for users on Mac. It is going to make a huge difference. It's one of the big reasons that OBS wasn't necessarily the go-to for Mac. I still don't think that I would ever want to use a Mac while I'm using OBS, just because everything is optimized and made for Windows, and to a somewhat lesser extent Linux, because they are more open with their software coding, so you're able to do things a little bit better, or a little bit easier. But hopefully it gets on the same level soon, fingers crossed, because one day I would like Mac to be just as effective at running OBS and just as accessible for everyone. I already touched on the virtual camera toggles. They added presets for 1080p and 4K in video capture devices for Mac OS that was not available prior to this. It was only available on Windows and Linux. They re-enabled Python scripting support in Mac OS, which is something that was not of it. That was a big reason why OBS was not as accessible in Mac OS before, because a lot of things that you do in OBS are done through Python. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but it's good. Let's see. They added the launch perimeter to disable high DPI scaling. If you're on a lesser, on a weaker system, that's going to help you. If you're on a higher performance system, it's really going to make no difference to you because you're not using it. Most of these things are they're just things that are going to run in the background. A big one. If your camera has auto rotate, so this is something that if people are using something like the Epoch Cam, which if you don't know what Epoch Cam is, what it is it's an app from Elgato that it allows you to use your phone as an NDI video source and bring it into OBS. So say you don't have, rotation or whatever locked on your phone. You turn your phone sideways or you're moving it around or whatever, right? You can lock the rotation in OBS. That's the main people that were having problems with this were people that were using the Logitech StreamCam, because the Logitech StreamCam has an auto rotation function depending on which way you have it oriented. So it was messing with people. It kept turning their camera. So now you can lock that in OBS. All right. Sorry, need to get back to the list of things. So one thing for for window capture that on Windows has been the bane of a lot of people's existence is Warzone. Warzone in the past has been terrible for display capture, or sorry, for window capture. Or no, not for window capture, for game capture. It's been terrible for game capture. All right, it's been incredibly frustrating for game capture in the past in OBS. You've always had to either use display capture or you've had to use window capture, one or the other, in order to play Warzone, because on top of all of the problems with the way hooking and frame capture and stuff like that was happening in game capture, Warzone also is not a terribly optimized game. There's also a lot of bugs in the game as well. But what OBS could do, or what could be done for OBS, has been done. They've improved it. I haven't tested it yet, but I am going to test it over the next couple days so that I can actually confirm that, hey, it's good to use game capture now instead of using window capture, display capture in order to run Warzone while you're streaming. If you're not on a single PC system, or if you're using a console, doesn't really matter that much for you. It matters for me because I'm on a single PC system. I'm on a system that's capable of streaming and running Warzone at the same time. But if you're on a dual PC system or you're using a console, it's kind of a moot point for you. Let's see, any other big... Okay, so that's really all the big ones in the improvements and tweaks. And now into the bug fixes. Most of these you're not going to. Most of these people won't even notice. They were mainly like here and there issues, things that were causing crashes, things like. On Windows, game capture is capturing frames out of order. That's the thing that I was talking about just a few seconds ago with Warzone. Silent audio, or muting audio when your audio buffer would hit the max instead of clearing it out. And then a bunch of other stuff that's Mac and Linux related. But for the most part, those are all of the main changes, or the main updates to OBS. Sorry, let me close that. Those are the big changes, the things that I'm really excited about coming into OBS version 27.0. I can't wait to play around with the source visibility transitions as well as track mats. I've got some ideas that you might be seeing in as soon as 2 weeks on a certain show. But I'm really excited for all this. If this video helped you, if you were appreciative of this particular type of content, if you got something out of this, please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, turn notifications on so you know the next time that I'm here for another episode of Technical Difficulties, as well as the other myriad of shows that I do here on the network. Dessert Men Live on Fridays with my co-host Aiden Kosick. Saturdays are for anime on the third Saturday every month, with the illustrious panel of weebs that I've got over there for that show. And also consider subscribing to the Patreon, patreon.com/BurkeMade. That is how I'm able to continue to make these videos and make them for free. That's the big thing, is that for all of these shows, the shows are free. They're here on YouTube. They're gonna live here on YouTube forever. They're not behind a paywall, and the only reason I can do that is through the support of my patrons and all of the support that I receive there. There is exclusive content for patrons. There is something super huge that I'm so glad that I kind of have to rework a little bit now. But I'm so glad that this version of OBS came out before I got everything done for it. That is going to be exclusive to my patrons hold on, I think it's going to be on June 16th is when I'm going to announce release the new patron tier, the early bird special Patreon tier for my OBS masterclass. I'm putting together an absolute from top to bottom OBS masterclass. It's going to be done in the style of an actual masterclass. I'm going to be doing weekly VOD videos that are the masterclass that you will be able to watch at any time. They're going to be exclusive to my Patreon. When I release the $25 tier early bird special, you can get that rate for the entire class. So $25 a month for the entire class. Only until the first day of the class. First day of the class, it gets bumped up to the $35 level, and it's staying there from here on out. At the $25 level, you will have access to the masterclass in perpetuity. At the $25 level, early bird special. I will also have weekly office hours. The office hours are going to be at the $50 tier, mainly because I can't have everyone in there, because in those office hours, I'm going to be troubleshooting with you and your individual OBS setups. When I do the masterclass, I'm going to do a very general setup. I'm probably going to do a basic Twitch stream type setup, and then I might do something like walk you through the way I have FCL set up. Maybe something like that. But that's going to be a very generic setup. If you want something that's more tailored to you and some individual help, office hours, they're going to be weekly. I'm not sure if it's going to be an hour or 2 hour, but it's going to be something in that time range, once a week, probably on Discord, just because it'll be the easiest. Once you join the Patreon, you'll automatically get brought into the Discord if you have a Discord account. So it'll probably be on Discord, maybe on StreamYard. Well, that's something I'll work out once I see exactly who's going to be participating. But that's what I've got going on and coming in the future for you guys. So anyone who's supporting me on Patreon, that's what you're helping me create, that, as well as keeping these videos and these shows free for everyone else. So I really do appreciate it. I'm gonna check my stream elements real quick to see if I got any questions over there. Let me refresh the page. Doesn't look like it. So with that, I really want to say thank you to everyone who watched this live. My good friend Brandon Hanna, Jesse Swift, Sean Wingblade, thank you so much for coming and watching live. I really, really do appreciate it. It does mean the world to me. And I'm glad that these videos are helping all of you. And if you've got some suggestions on videos that you want me to make, you've got some, hey, I'm having this problem, drop it in the comments below. Drop it in the comments. If you want one of these new features, you want me to really in-depth show you how to use it, drop it in the comments below, please. And thank you so much. And until next time, please, as my good friend Raul says, thank you for attending the Berkmaid School of Broadcasting, and I will see you next time.